So I know that a question that's on a lot of our minds is if the Alexander Isak transfer is still possible, and I personally believe so. And I'll tell you why. First off, it's true, Newcastle's stance has not changed. They say that he's not for sale. They do not want to sell him, it seems, for any price this summer, because Liverpool is willing. All the most reliable journalists said that we're willing to pay a record 120, 130 million pounds because he's our dream target. He's our number one target for this summer. But Newcastle insists he's not for sale. However, I do find it really interesting that Fabrizio last night, for example, said that Liverpool still haven't pulled out of the race to sign Isak, that they're still ready to pounce if Newcastle's stance changes. And I just find it interesting that it's not this like, he's not for sale and there's no chance that he leaves. That's clearly not the stance, because otherwise we wouldn't be kind of lurking and ready to pounce. And this is the reason why I think it is possible that it happens. So this is from The Athletic this morning. They said that one of the difficulties for Newcastle with Alexander Isak is that him and his camp for some time now have been wanting a contract extension or a big pay increase, okay? Even though he's one of the highest earners at the club, he knows that if he went into the open market, so that's saying, let's say he goes to Liverpool, right? Or he goes to Saudi, wherever, whoever's willing to take him and pay that record fee, he would get big wages, obviously, because he's, an elite player. Newcastle can't afford to do that unless they completely change the structure of the club. And right now with PSR, and as you see, PSR is very strict. If it wasn't strict, then Newcastle would be out buying the best players because they're the richest ownership, you know what I mean? But you've seen how careful they've been in the way they spend and recruit, and that is simply due to PSR. So credit where it's due, because it seems like now there are actual rules that teams have to follow with this PSR. So I think it's a good news for the league. But anyways, they were saying that Newcastle have a really difficult decision, to make, because either they take the risk of him leaving for a lot less money next summer because he would have 2 years left and it would be clear that he'd be leaving, or they sell him this summer and they get the max money for him. So like I was saying before, 120, 130 million, which they can reinvest in the squad, similar to us back in the day when we sold we sold Coutinho to get the money for Alisson and Van Dijk. I think this could be a similar effect where if they sold Alexander Isak, it would give them a lot of leeway with PSR and they could invest that all over the squad, which they need because they're going to be competing in the Champions League as well since they qualified. That for them it is, I do think, an interesting position, and that's why I believe Liverpool is still lurking and Liverpool still believes that it's possible that Newcastle change their stance. And that's why I think no major journalist has said it's done. Liverpool have moved on for Isak, because we know that we don't waste our time. And I do believe there would have been reports by now, had it been the case, that Liverpool just have moved on and they're no longer interested in Isak. But something tells me that it's still possible this summer for this reason. So the other, scenario is they do offer Isak a big contract extension, right? And let's say they offer him something like £300 a week, which probably reflects the type of player that he is, in this moment in time, one, if not the most complete forward in the Premier League. If they do that though, however, it would be a major problem because they would have to lose players in other positions to make up that wage structure. And not only that, but then they take the risk that some of their other star players who have really risen since they came to the club, for example, Bruno, for example, Joelinton, for example, Anthony Gordon, they will all start to say, Isak is on 300,000, then I should be on 150 or 180. And basically that could change everything within the squad dynamics, And that's where I think this is a very difficult position for Newcastle, where I think they have to make a decision. It's really a question of those three possibilities. Like I said, so either they let him go this summer, they give him a contract extension, but it makes it very complicated for the entire structure of the squad, or they let him go next summer, but it would be for a lot less money because, like I said, if he hadn't signed an extension by then it would be clear that he's leaving and clubs would have more leeway in the negotiations for that. So That's the reason why I still think it can happen this summer. Even if, yes, it's probably not the most likely option, but that's why, because I've just seen a lot of people saying, so are we now no longer in the race for Isak? What's going on? I personally believe that's why it hasn't been completely 100% shut down by journalists, you know? So a bit of optimism there, I guess. So my question for you, let me know in the comments. And by the way, all of you that are still watching this and in the building right now, I really appreciate you guys showing the support, because this is a new channel, trying something different. As you can see, I'm just walking along the beach in Iceland. It's so beautiful, and look how quiet. There's literally no one here. But yeah, let me know in the chat if you think it's still a possibility. If you would go for it, if let's say he did become available and it was for 120, 130, let me know. And I'll get back to you guys. OGs that are showing that support right now. But I still think, yeah, I do believe there could be a world where we sign Ekitike and Alexander Isak, because apparently they like that Ekitike is pretty versatile. And if we sold Lucho and Darwin, we would raise significant funds with that. So I think there could be a world where we end up with both, even if it's very unlikely. But that's why I also think in the reports it said, if we sign Ekitike, that still doesn't mean Isak is out of the question. And one of those reasons is obviously the tragedy of Diogo Jota, which means that we've lost obviously an important striker, you know, so we have to replace him. Obviously you can't replace him, but you have to find a way, you know, you have to find a way. And with Darwin very likely leaving, all the reports are saying that he's likely leaving. He'll probably go to Saudi now that Napoli have pulled out of the race. But that makes me think that if we sold Lucho, I don't necessarily think we sign an out-and-out left winger, because we have Gakpo there who's already starting. We have Rio who's coming through, who's such a talent. And I think there could be a chance maybe we keep hold of Chiesa now, and he can be very, very versatile in those three attacking positions. And his best position actually is on the left wing. So he could be an option there too if Lucho leaves. So that's just to say, with those funds that we'd raise from Darwin and Lucho, I think that could be money for Ekitike and Isak, you know. But again, I agree, it's unlikely. It's more unlikely than likely that he could come this summer. But that's just to say, I do still believe it's possible that we sign him for those very reasons I told you guys, you know. But yeah, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. Either way, what a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. The fact we're even in these conversations and that it's possible just shows how well our football club is run and how ambitious we are. And I mean, already, even with no more signings, I'd be absolutely buzzing for the new season, because obviously the likes of Florian Wirtz, new fullback duo, and just so many things that I'm excited about for the new season. But yeah, guys, as always, I want to thank you for your support. You know, this is only going to be day 2 of the channel, but I plan on doing daily videos for you guys on questions that are on our minds, and any support that you show is so appreciated, and I want to thank you guys for that. So sending my very, very best. Look at that beauty. And yeah, guys, I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully with news, with big transfer news and stuff. But yeah, guys, have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see you very soon. Ciao, guys.